Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here for this very special live performance of Stephen Dodgson's songs. Tonight we are exploring a set of songs that ranges over 60 years, more than 60 years, of Stephen's compositional life. And this is part of a larger project as well, where we'll be recording essentially the entire song output of Stephen Dodgson with an absolutely fabulous team of singers and instrumentalists. So I'm really, really glad you're able to be with us here tonight and to have the first glimpse of what that's going to look like and sound like. So far you've just heard April Fool, a little bit early in the year, I grant you. That comes from The Distances Between. It's a two-voice cycle setting poems by Louis MacNeath. And now we have three songs sung by James Gilchrist, and they are, the first two are rather watery in theme. We have Slow, Slow, Fresh Fount and Inversnaid, followed by The Stone, setting the poetry of Hal Summers.
Dodgson burn horseback run his roar of Cairo drawing down. In coop and in comb the fleece of his foam flutes and lows of the lake falls home. A wind puff bonnet of fawn froth turns and twins, over the broth of a pool, so pitch-black fell, frowning, it rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds despair to drown. Decked with dew, dappled with dew, are the groins of the braes that the brook treads through. Fitches of fern and the beam on the ash that sits over the burn. What would the world be once bereft of wet and of wildness? Let them be left. Oh, let them be left, wildness and wet. Long live the weeds and the wind. A stone fell into me, scattering in drops the calm reflective lake. Then ripples wide and always ran against the steep cliff and the sandy bank. The body of the of buried in sand, in water, weed, and slime from picnic laughing shore, perceived of none. Moveless, inert, it lies there all the time, the indestructible stone.
I'm going to continue tonight's concert with two beautiful songs. The first is The Mower to the Glowworms, and it's a little gem of a 17th century poem by Andrew Marvell. It's an homage to the glowworm who lights the way of the mower who's out doing his work at night, but his mind isn't exactly on the mowing, and perhaps there's a little hint of unrequited love as we go along. The second of my songs tonight is A Gypsy Prayer. And this is a simple prayer about a fella wishing for a home and a wife. That's followed by two great little songs written for the unusual and interesting combination of a guitar, a baritone, and a recorder. And these are two great little songs, Riley and Company. The first one we meet the rustic character of Riley, and in the second we meet the equally rustic character of Timothy Winters.
Sit
Till one winter was morning, riding from the meadow vanished clean. Gone was the rusty tin, the timber, as if old Riley had never been. Comes to school with eyes as wide as a football pool, ears like bombs and teeth like splinters. A blitz of a boy is Timothy Winters. His bed is white, his neck is dark, and his head is an exclamation mark. His clothes are enough to scare a crow, and through his breeches the blue winds blow. Talks, he won't hear a word, and he shoots down dead the arithmetic bird. He licks the patterns of his plate, and he's not even heard of the welfare state. Timothy Winters has bloody feet. He lives in a house on Suez Street. He sleeps in a sack on the kitchen floor, and they say there aren't boys like him anymore. Old man Winters likes his beer, and his missus ran off with a bombardier. Grandma sits in the grate with a gin, Timothy's dosed with an aspirin. The welfare worker lies awake, but the law's as tricky as a 10-foot snake. So Timothy Winters drinks his cup, and slowly goes on growing up. At morning prayers, the master helps for children. So we finish the first half of our programme this evening with 5 more songs for voice and piano. Ailish will be singing the last song, Sunflower, at the end, but before that, we together are going to be performing a short song cycle of Stephen Dodgson's called Tideways. And I suppose the title gives a hint that most of the poems, which are by Ezra Pound, can consider in some ways water and the movement of water as perhaps a mirror to the movement of our souls. There are 4 songs in this little cycle. Ailish will sing the first and the last, and I'll do the 2 in the middle, and Chris valiantly will play all of them.
As the wind
day and night. Come now, before this power that bears us up shall turn against the pole. Look not to the flood of stars, the things will be. Oh, love, come now. This land turns evil slowly. Love, come now. The waves that bore in, soon will they bear away. The treasure is ours. Make we fast land with it. Move free and take the tide with its next favor. Abide under some neutral force until this course turneth aside. That was the top of the walk when he said, have you seen any others? Any of our lot with aids or bands? A brown upstanding fellow, not like a half-caste, up on the wet road, little Claremont. The wind came and the rain, and mist blotting about the trees in the valley. And I, the long ways behind me, Graham and Beauclerc, and he said, have you seen any of our lot? I'd seen a lot of his lot ever since Rhodes, coming up from the fair of St. John with caravans, but never a maid or a bear.
For about 10 minutes, but please don't go away. As you may discover, a couple of us had a few things to say about Stephen and his music this afternoon, and indeed about an exciting new release that came out only this week, a very, very special opera, in my opinion. See you in the second half. Thank you.
How did the project come about?
Well, the trust itself was set up after Stephen died in 2013. Stephen had been quite a prolific composer, and as well as being Professor of Theory and Composition at the RCM. But although his music had had quite a wave of popularity earlier on, it had slightly fallen out of fashion. And so we set up the trust. In fact, Stephen's widow and a whole committee have set up a trust in order to raise awareness again of this wonderful set of music. And so we've been looking at what opportunities there are, and this particular project was one of two, in theory. We were going to record a set of choral works and a separate set of his main song cycles. And of course, as coronavirus arrived, the choral CD looked less likely. It's quite hard to get a bunch of singers in the same room at the moment. But there are all these other wonderful, untapped, early individual songs that hadn't originally been part of the idea. So we decided, come on, let's grow this project, let's explore these other things, take advantage of the situation rather than letting it defeat us. So we've got these wonderful early songs, all these individual songs as well. And in fact, we've even expanded out into some of the guitar songs, 7 of which I've heard before in performance, and they're absolutely delightful. So I'm so looking forward to hearing London is the Milder Curse, for example, tonight.
Fantastic. And after the concert tonight, what's future plans for this project?
Well, we go into the recording studio on Thursday, and we have nearly a week in Suffolk. Unfortunately, one of our singers is Roddy Williams, who sadly can't be with us tonight, but he's stuck in Holland at the moment, so most of the project is going to take place the rest of this week, and then Roddy is going to come and sing some of his solo songs for us later this year, hopefully when the coronavirus regulations then allow. And they're then going to be released, I think we'll probably see the first release next year, but we're going to release them over several CDs, so I'm really looking forward to seeing them out there.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
So Mark, it's wonderful that you're able to join us for this project here tonight, and I understand that you actually have a long tradition. You've known Stephen's music for a long time, so tell us how that came about.
It comes about basically when I was a student at the Royal Academy of Music, and Michael Lewin, a head of guitar at there, was decided basically he was going to have a festival of Stephen's music. Huge emphasis obviously on Stephen's enormous output of guitar music, but obviously because Stephen wrote a lot of chamber works for guitar and voice and other instruments and things like that, there was a large kind of collection of works he wanted to put into that festival. And so Michael asked myself and Christopher Stell, who I'm in a guitar duo with for many, many years now, to sort of get together for the pure purpose of learning a guitar duo by Stephen called Promenade. And that was really the beginning of not only our guitar duo, which has been going on for forever now, but also our association with Stephen, because then we went on and we learned some other guitar duo works by him, recorded all of those, and also asked him also to write a guitar concerto for us, double guitar concerto, which he did. So we're very, very proud of that.
Excellent. And for our audience tonight, some of whom are new to Stephen's music, what particularly appeals to you about Stephen's music?
I definitely think Stephen's music is very exciting. It never seems to sort of like get stuck in a rut. It always has a very sort of changeable nature. So just when you think you're kind of like, getting to hear something you're latching onto, Stephen will take a quick turn, and the whole sort of musical characterization will take a huge change. So I love his sort of capricious sort of nature to his music. It's really very, very exciting. And he's got, I think that idea of him being a sort of like a modern day Baroque composer in a way, there's a sort of, neo-Baroqueism to it, which I actually asked him about. Really. He sort of agreed that, he liked that, he loves the idea of how the proportions of Baroque music, and he knows when to sort of end a piece, it's just knows how long to gauge, how long to go on for and things. So it's wonderfully unique writing, its own style, didn't follow any other sort of musical fashions as well. So that's another reason I like him. So you can spot Stephen's music a mile off. It's wonderful stuff.
Do you think he has a particular harmonic sound world that he uses regularly, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sort of, there'll be a sort of moments where you think, oh, this is quite tonal, and then you'll just hear sort of like this undercurrent of like sort of, something else creeping into it, which will give it that edge, and I like it. It's kind of, it will disturb things. But he does that on purpose, purely to sort of, cut across harmonies. And then, and again, with the same things with rhythms. His rhythms are fantastic. Just when he's established a rhythm or a pulse, he will cut across it and change that. He's a disruptor in a way. He likes to sort of set things up and then disrupt it completely. So it's very, very exciting to listen to.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
So, James, I know already that you've sung the London lyrics before, and the 4 poems of John Clare, which we're revisiting for this project. But I'm interested, what particularly appeals to you about the world of Stephen Dodgson?
Well, I suppose the honest answer is I hadn't come across much of Stephen's music until I was asked to do some of the guitar songs by Mark Eden, whom we've got playing tonight. And actually, I mean, Stephen has written quite a lot for the guitar, and so I think guitar players, are more familiar with his music perhaps than other people. But it's been a great pleasure to learn some of his songs. You're quite right. So the London lyrics I did a while ago, actually not with Mark, but and then the John Clare settings I did with Mark he's got a position at Birmingham Conservatoire, and we did it together there in a concert, and really we enjoyed doing it. It's such a lovely style of writing for the instrument, and it works very well. I mean, I've done a fair bit of music for guitar and voice, and some composers really sort of get it, and others struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
And Stephen obviously did a lot of research into how the guitar works and what will work on the guitar, and I think he's come up with some amazing textures, and the kind of balance between the voice and the instrument works very well. So actually I got to know his guitar music before I got to know any of the songs for voice and piano, which seems a bit bizarre, but that's what happened.
And I should probably say for our audience, unfortunately, they're not hearing John Clare tonight. They'll have to wait until the CD.
Yes, that's true. But we are getting a couple of the London lyrics.
We are getting a couple of London lyrics.
Amazing, and we're performing it in London, of course. So
exactly, very appropriate.
Yeah.
In fact, it will be straight after the interval we'll be hearing those. And you were just saying something to me a moment ago, interestingly, about the development of Stephen's music from a lot. We're hearing a lot of his early stuff tonight, but then right up to 2009.
Yes, well, I think the guitar music is of the later patch, really, and some of the songs for voice and piano are much earlier, and it's interesting to do them because his own personal style, he hasn't quite found that sort of quirky, slightly wrong note music that we get to know and love from the later music. Some of it is much more in a kind of more lyrical style, and I suppose less harmonically sort of adventurous, but nevertheless beautifully crafted. And the other thing he's fascinatingly good at is finding poets whom none of us have heard of. I mean, it's not altogether true, we've heard of Ezra Pound and Gerard Manley Hopkins, but there are some poets whom he uses, Hal Summers, I've never heard of Hal Summers, and I've struggled to find anything about Hal Summers even. And there's probably a personal connection, they probably knew each other, and I find it really interesting that he was drawn to poets who are less sort of well-known, perhaps themselves a bit more quirky, if one can use that word.
And I know we've talked about this a little. How does it feel to you doing this project during this pandemic?
I can't begin to tell you how precious this is to be able to perform, albeit without an audience, except down the camera lens, but actually just for us musicians to meet together and to be able to make a performance. It's an incredible thing to be able to do, and it reminds us why we're at it. Music's a form of communicative expression, it's how we speak to one another, and really with that being taken away, it's like having to wear a mask all the time. It sort of stops a bit of humanity existing. I know what you mean. Yeah. And I think I've been saying to people, I feel a bit about the lockdowns as if the Dementors have managed to gain traction here, because they've sort of sucked the joy out of life and the kind of meaning that means that we want to get up in the morning, and I think music is part of that. And I'm a bit worried, of course, in the future that the people who are, the way the world has to be run when there's something awful going on, danger rears its head. And immediately, we batten down the hatches and stop communicating with one another and stop being human beings. And I worry for the future, rather, that we might lose that. And I hope we don't. I particularly feel for young musicians and young artists. Imagine if this is your first day out of music college this year. What are you going to be doing?
Absolutely.
I just think it's so difficult. But thank you to the Dodgson Trust for enabling the five of us to come here today and meet together and make music. It's wonderful.
You're very welcome, and indeed, I hope it brings our audience and all of you much joy.
Thank you.
So, as well as the exciting recording project this week, I understand that there's also been some recent releases of Stephen's work.
Well, yes, I mean, we've actually had, probably about 10 or so releases of Stephen Dodgson CDs over the last 4 or 5 years, some of which were supported or actually run directly by the Trust, some of which are just organically happened. It's wonderful to see Stephen's music out there. But yes, I'm very excited particularly about Margaret Catchpole, which is his 4-act opera, which we recorded in summer 2019 at Snape Maltings. And it's just a fabulous story. It's full of evocative music of the Suffolk marshes and some very individual characters, some wonderful heartfelt music. So I encourage you all to get out and buy your copy from Naxos or wherever you do, or find it on Spotify, because it is not to be missed.
Hello and welcome back to the second half of our concert celebrating the music of Stephen Dodgson. Stephen wrote a fair bit of music for the guitar, and we're very lucky to have Mark Eden here to play with us today. And the next couple of songs are taken from a set of songs that he wrote for voice and guitar. The poetry is by various people, but they all have the common theme of the city of London, and so they're called London lyrics. They're wonderful, wonderful pieces, and I performed them a couple of times actually. The second one we're going to do for you just now pictures 3 rather splendid ladies in a boat sailing down the Thames, and we're not quite sure who they are or indeed what they are. But the first is perhaps not an ideal start for a set of songs about London, because the poet is wishing that he were elsewhere.
Slaves to London, I'll deceive you, for the country now I'll leave you. Who can bear and not be mad? Wine so dear and yet so bad, such a noise, an awful smoky, that to stun ye, this to jolt ye. Men so selfish, false and rude, nymphs so young, and yet so lewd. Sure of losing, if we love, what do we choosing? At the playhouse, tedious sport, Canton City, cringe, cringe at court, dirty in streets, dirty boys, jolting coaches, whores and carnies, knaves and coxcombs everywhere. Who that's wise would tarry here? Quiet, harmless, country pleasure, Not at home, my wife will find me. Oh, ye gods, 'tis 10 times worse. London is a milder curse. At noon 3 English dowagers rise, stiff of neck and dignified. Margaret, Maud, and Mary Blake, with servile barges in their wake. But silhouetted at midnight, darkly by green and crimson light, 3 Nubian queens pass down the Thames, stately with flashing gems. So we return to music for the piano and voice now, with 3 poems of Beddoes, being translations of much older poetry. Again, it's a little set, and Ailish and I are going to share it between us with Christopher. So Ailish sings the first one, the title of which I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because it's got too many syllables in too short a space of time. And then there's a dirge, and we finish with an extraordinary poem about 2 carrion crows, Adam and Eve, feasting on the bones of Cleopatra.
I set foot in the meadow
Until the sea wave washes the old crow of Cairo. He sat in the shower and let it flow, flow, and let it flow, flow, under his tail and over his crest. And though every feather looked a wet web, and not a swan under his nest, for his beak was heavy, heavy with marrow. Is that the wind dying, 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 dying? Oh no, oh no, it's only two devils that blow, 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 blow through a murderous bones, to and fro, to and fro, in the ghost's grey carrion wife, when we have supped on king's marrow, oh, where shall we drink and make merry, merry, merry? Our life merry, our nest is clean, oh, Patra's skull, 'tis cloven and cracked, and battered and hacked, but with tears of blue eyes it is full. Let us drink then, my raven of Cairo. Is that the wind dying, 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 dying? Oh no, oh no, it's only two devils that blow, 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 blow through a murderous bones, to and fro, the ghost moonshine.
In a short while, Mark and Ian and I will be returning to Riley and Co., that wonderful cycle for baritone, recorder and guitar, and we'll be performing bamboo dance, which is the most wonderful evocation of a Filipino bamboo dance. And you can actually hear the bamboo clacking together in that style of dance, which is both very, very beautiful and also strangely dangerous. If you haven't seen one before, take a look on YouTube and you'll see what I mean. Before that, Ailish and Christopher and I are returning to the distances between. We have two songs for you now, Dreams of Middle Ages and Invocation.
Fetch me far shocks the dancing day. Ceases smiling, the dancers go. And locked in gentle hand, their
Before we come to our final set tonight, I wanted once again, on behalf of the Stephen Dodgson Charitable Trust, to thank you all for joining us tonight. I can say, certainly for myself, it's been a very special evening. There have been spine-tingling moments. That lovely bit in distances between just now, I felt truly choked up, both from the context of the pandemic and having this wonderful concert generally, but just the fabulous musicianship we've heard here tonight. So thank you all for that. It has been incredibly hard putting together this project with the pandemic, and I'm so proud that we were able to make it happen. If you have enjoyed tonight, we would welcome a donation. We have a Just Giving link, I believe, below the video that you're watching, or you can just Google the Stephen Dodgson Charitable Trust on Just Giving as well. So, oh, and of course, I must plug Margaret Catchpole again. I genuinely, likewise, think this is just an amazingly wonderful piece of music and writing. So I encourage you to also go out there and buy copies and listen to it to your heart's content. So we come to the final set now. So we start with James singing Winter Heavens, looking at the celestial bodies and their effect on our view of the world around us. And then from the sort of more literal celestial bodies to the more figurative ones, we've moved into the direction of religion, the Lachrymae, and the tears of Christ, but then actually to the animals, the animal kingdom within the world of religion. So we have the monk and his cat. It's a very similar text to that of Barber and his hermit songs, but it's a lovely interplay here between the soprano and the recorder, who's back for more. This is followed by a lovely, beautiful setting of William Blake's The Lamb. And finally, we return to the last of Riley and Co. With Rocco. This is about a dog who looks after his saintly master even through the plague and helps him become cured. But his own perspectives on being perhaps slightly second best when his own master turns to curing others. I'm sure Marcus's bow wow will tell you a lot more about that. Thank you.
Swarms are rushing from the golden comb. flesh and dust, and have we knelt, wide as kindness springs of radiance. And this is the soul's haven to have.
Against the face of the
Piacenza son, the sickness struck him like a flame. Dear Lord, he cried, my life is done, and to a summer forest came. But I, his creature, sought him high and sought him low on his green bed, where he had laid him down, down to die. I picked his wounds and brought him bread,